Hello and welcome to another episode of A Different Life. I'm Dr. Christine Hendricks. Today we discuss Post-Polio Syndrome, a disorder of the nerves and muscles that happens in some people many years after they have had polio. To help us understand that is General Secretary at the YMCA and social worker Sarah Newland Martin and post-polio patient Nella McPherson. Stay with us. History says that the polio virus has been around since the 18th century. However, in the summer of 1955, in Massachusetts in the United States, would report more than 2,000 cases. It was the first sign of an outbreak that would go down in history. Today, the United States has been polio-free since 1979. Thanks to a successful vaccination program. However, there remain many people who had had polio at a young age who now, later in life, might develop the post-polio syndrome. With me in studio is General Secretary at the YMCA and social worker Sarah Newland Martin and post-polio patient Nella McPherson. Ladies, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
Great. Mrs. Newland, let me start with you. Tell us exactly what is polio, first of all, and how has it impacted persons who have had it?
What I remember, first of all, I'm not a polio patient.
Understood.
But I grew up with quite a number of the children who had polio. And from what I learned about polio is that it is like a virus that affected the respiratory system and also their limbs. So when you see someone who has had polio, you'll notice how slim the limbs are. In some instances, they can't walk. In some instances too, they have to be given a rod in their back to help to straighten them up, or else they will develop scoliosis.
Okay.
And in some instances, well, some have passed on. Now, in 1954, when they had the polio outbreak, there was about 1,000 children and 150 adults that contracted the polio.
Here in Jamaica?
Here in Jamaica. They were first housed at KPH and then transferred to the lighthouse at Plum Point on your way to the airport or on your way to Port Royal. That was where they were quarantined.
Okay.
And then transferred to the present location, Mona Rehab Center, which is now the Sir John Golden Rehabilitation Center. And so that was where I got to know all of these children, including Nella as a child, that have grown up and are now suffering from post-polio syndrome. In fact, I should let you know that of the 1,000 children, in Jamaica, we probably have, if as much, about 300 persons alive. And maybe in the States, there's maybe between the States and England, about 100, if as much. And we do maintain our contact with each other, with those who are alive. So we have called ourselves the Hostel Days Group.
Right. It's so funny how much like COVID it sounds, don't it?
Yes.
I'm wondering if
it does.
Persons who would have experienced polio back then, would now with COVID, or 2020 and 2021 with COVID, if persons, it reminded them of what happened then.
It did, because, but what really was the problem too when they got chick V?
Oh.
That also created some challenges for them because, you know, chickpea affected the joints and they could not get around. Nella will tell you her experience having gotten chickpea as against having the post-polio syndrome. So that too was a challenge for quite a number of them who got chickpea. And the COVID, the interesting thing that not very many of them got COVID because they were all vaccinated and ensure that they
understood what happened back then. Very interesting. So persons who would have had polio back then, you explained what are some of the signs and symptoms
of the post-polio syndrome.
Of polio itself.
Yes, yeah.
So you explained that the muscles,
the weakness of the muscles, right? Respiratory problems, not being able to move around as easily, had to use braces such as what Nella is wearing, had to use a wheelchair, had to get physiotherapy. This is how come many of us started sports, because as the center was called rehabilitation, you were rehabilitating people to live as normal a life as possible. And so this is how come we all got involved in sports.
So is it one of the signs or symptoms is the leg pulling up? Because I noticed, if I remember, you do have some persons with polio who you have one leg that is shorter. Is it the shunt in the back, or what would have caused that?
I couldn't give you an answer for that particular situation. I know that in some cases, yes, you had some with very short leg on one, and so when they are building the surgical boots, you'll find that one of the shoe is about 6 to 8 inches higher than the regular leg. It also could be when the surgery was done, because quite a number of them have had to have surgery to correct the problem of one leg not growing too fast, and ensuring that there's not a fall on one side, but to ensure that they are stable. So these are some of the challenges that they encountered. But I think for many, they manage. For instance, Nella used to wear 2 calipers. She's wearing one. She feels that she can manage without one. But there are quite a number of them who have decided that they can now manage with one caliper and one crutch. But with the post-polio syndrome, I'm finding that they are now having a serious challenge going around with the one crutch and have to be using 2 crutches or resorting to wheelchairs or to use a stick.
So is there an age where persons begin to experience post-polio syndrome, or there is no real age?
It's said that after 15 years to 30 years is when you begin to experience the post-polio syndrome. You become tired, fatigued, the legs become a little bit weaker, you have a problem of joint pains, and it is also said that you actually begin to feel as if you're having polio again, when in truth and in fact it's not the polio again, it's just the withering of your muscles that is making it difficult for you to maneuver and to get around. Before coming on, I did interview a number of persons, and what I'm sharing with you is what it is that they have shared with me, what is happening to them. And you know, Christine, that for years I've been advocating how can we get help for this group of persons who are experiencing the wasting away of their muscles, because it's not that you can't do exercise, but they are saying you can't do too much because you can develop into cardiovascular problems, or you can make the situation a little bit worse in terms of trying to be physically fit.
So swimming, you have to balance. Swimming is the best.
Swimming was
exercise.
One of the best exercise for persons who develop this post-polio syndrome. However, what I find in Jamaica, and it's not only in Jamaica, because in speaking with my friend overseas, it's the same situation. Because polio is eradicated, really and truly, there is no study that is done to deal with the post-polio syndrome. And I am concerned because you can't, when you go to a doctor, based on the information I have, they don't really understand what the patient is encountering.
And perhaps they're thinking maybe it's arthritis.
It could be arthritis or right. And in truth and in fact, as I mentioned before, it is the withering of the muscles, and they themselves do not know how to handle it.
So it is some advocacy is required then in the medical profession to see, you know, if someone or a number of persons will take it on, because 300 persons is quite a lot. You know, it's human beings, and they have to live just as everybody else. So.
And we don't know how much longer. Some will live. They're now living over 70 years with it, and they are suffering with it. In fact, Dr. Winston Dawes, when I had mentioned it some time ago, did offer, he said he had a machine that would help to sort of relieve some of the pains that they are encountering. And one person, Nella went when she had the chickpea, but one person told me, who is a post-polio patient, went for that purpose. And she had said she did get some relief. However, we would like more persons to see what they can do to help, because the one doctor can't manage.
Definitely not.
And I really would want to find out, is there someone or a group who would be willing to see how it is that they can help this group of persons.
Definitely an important, very, very important subject matter and issue for the medical profession. Now, Nella, to you, tell us your story. At what age did you contract polio, and tell us what happened?
I contract polio at the age of 2 years, so I really don't know how it is to walk without braces on my legs and on my soul. So that's how I...
Okay. I'm understanding that we have to take a break, so we take the break now and we come right back to you, Nella, and your story. We'll be right back. Welcome back to A Different Life. We're talking today about post-polio syndrome and its effect on persons who are experiencing it. Mrs. Sarah Newland-Martin and Miss Della McPherson are still with us. Miss McPherson, you can continue to share your story with us in terms of when did you begin to see the signs of post-polio syndrome, and how has it impacted your life?
Well, I really don't know. I haven't felt the difference as yet, as badly as some of them have felt it. But it has impacted my life in many different ways. You had to know how to integrate yourself with able-bodied, and how they deal with you as a person with disability. I really didn't have any problem as such with them, but there are times when they look at you and, look at you and said, well, look at her, and, but you just have to ignore their ignorance. So I just really don't want to notice them.
Okay, so that's for the polio. Have you started experiencing the post-polio syndrome?
Yes, a little, not as much. I've been a bit of joint pains, not much joint pains in my shoulder. But since the chick V, I have been having it worse. I had it worse in my shoulders. I wasn't feeling it at that time. But since the chick V, I had it.
Okay. So it is mainly the shoulders, not your legs.
Shoulders,
not.
no.
Okay. Okay. And what happens with your shoulders? Just the pain?
Just the pain. Just it's not the pain that I cannot bear, but it's just the pain.
So does it impact you in terms of your everyday movement,
No,
lifting,
not
moving
at all,
things?
not at all. I still teach swimming at the Y, and I still go around and do my own shopping.
So you swim, Tunella?
Yes, I do swim.
Good. So perhaps that is the exercise that helps.
But I've been swum for this long time.
Okay.
I must admit.
Yes. All right. Great. What are the options in terms of treatment? I know we've been talking about physiotherapy.
I am not sure that there are any options per se, and that's why this program is important, to see if we can get persons showing an interest in what it is that they can do to help. Because, how should I put it now? Nello probably would go to a doctor and say, I'm having a challenge with my... Well, she's saying that she's not experiencing much of the post-polio syndrome. And I won't call the other person's name.
Right.
But they have shared with me that they have gone to the doctors. The doctors don't really know that they had polio. And so they don't know that what they're having is post-polio syndrome. So what they will do is send them to another doctor to see what it is that they can do to help them. When they go to the other doctor will say, maybe all I can give you is a painkilling tablet, and refer them to another doctor. And it's when they're sharing the problem of polio that they're realizing that they really don't know what to do. And that is where the challenge is. And so my focus today, as I mentioned before, is that I hope someone is listening and say, look, I have an interest. I would like to do some research. I'd like to meet these people. Some years ago, the Rotary Club of Kingston invited a doctor from Florida, who himself, a professor who had polio, and shared with the group. Those persons, most of the persons who were present were post-polio patients. And he did share with them that as they get older, they're going to be wanting to use a wheelchair. They're going to feel the symptoms again as if they're having polio. But this is what it is, a deterioration of the muscles. What can be done? We don't know. And Christine, here is my dilemma.
Yes.
What can we do to help them as they get older? Because they're living beyond 70. Right. And in a lot of cases are suffering all kinds of pains. I'm in touch with my close friend who you happen to know, and she will share some of the challenges in terms of the post-polio. And there are two other persons I spoke with before coming on, and it's difficult.
And you're saying that pain management is just one of the the options that are being offered. Pain management mainly.
So if they fall, they can't get up.
It's hard to get up. It's hard to get up. This is one of the...
So what it sounds like, it is not only an access issue, and of course we have access issues because we do have issues with persons being able to move around in our society who use wheelchair and have other physical disabilities. So it is an added challenge to persons who have or are experiencing post-polio syndrome.
One of the persons I spoke with said she no longer drives. She cannot manage at all to move around as she used to. And I remember she did ask me for one of those sticks.
Walkers.
Not walker, stick. She said, Sarah, not even that I can't manage anymore.
A walking stick?
That's right. Okay. Because she's really having a serious problem with post-polio syndrome. And there's another person who usually use one crutch. He's saying now that he has to use two because he is developing this post-polio syndrome and is finding his ability to get around challenging. So
the fact that the Disabilities Act has been passed, I know that persons who had polio would benefit. How much better or how much greater would the Disabilities Act and what is outlined there assist for the betterment of persons experiencing post-polio syndrome?
First of all, I think as a group, we need to familiarize ourselves about the Act and where it is that we can seek help. Can Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, the arm for persons that really seek out on behalf of persons with disabilities, help to even organize even a seminar, a workshop, or something that will educate not only further persons with disabilities, but the medical professions. How do you, and nurses, how do you help to inform? Let me give you an example of what a patient who had post-polio syndrome explained to me in a hospital after she had surgery. She said after she had surgery, the day after, the nurse says, "Get up and walk, get up and walk." And she said to the nurse, "I cannot get up and walk because my limbs are not allowing me to do that." And when she shares how she was treated, it is simply because the nurse never understood that the muscles in her feet can't allow her to move up and down like an able-bodied person. So ignorance is one of the problems. So what we really need to do is see how through the council and through the Disability Act help to educate
the public and the medical professions.
And the medical professions, the doctors, because they too do not understand the challenges that these persons are encountering. And it's more than one person who have told me, because I know that when they come out of theatre, the doctors want to see them up and about almost the day after. They can't do it.
It takes longer.
It takes longer, and they need to understand it. And this is one of the problems that they are encountering. Not a second thought, but a thought that is as if they're lazy. It's not that. They want to move on, but they can't get out.
My understanding, based on what you're saying, is that most persons experiencing post-polio are retired. Am I correct? Would they be retired?
No, not all of them are retired, but most of them may be unemployed, put it that way.
Okay.
And that is another challenge. Hence the difficulty of moving around to try and get something. So this is where 2 sheltered workshops, which I know the council had spoken about many years ago, I may have to see how best we can encourage them to set up their own little business.
So would they not function in the regular workplace alongside others with the reasonable arrangements that would be required for them to function?
Of course, some could. Some I'm not sure would be able to. Some could, as long as the opportunity is there. But
were they, most of these 300 persons, do you know, were they able, maybe Nella can help me, were they able to go to school, all of them?
Yes, yes, man. Some universities.
They have their qualifications. Okay, so...
And we can't be all doctors and we can't be all teachers.
Definitely.
But in their limited way, they were able to accomplish a lot in their limited way and still could use their hands to do something.
Okay. Okay. So I know, based on what you're saying, is that Jamaica as a country, we need to do some research.
Definitely.
Because post-polio is here for some, and some persons will get there shortly, because it is almost a part of the polio journey.
It is a part of the polio.
And
Not almost. It is.
It is a part of the
because
journey.
they have to
having
live
polio.
with it for the rest of their lives. In fact, I think I may have mentioned before the rod. For some people, they have to have a rod in their backs
all the time
to keep for life, to keep them straight, and hence they're able to move around easily. So therefore, it's you can understand the concern. I live with them. I understand their challenges, and I'd love to do anything I can to help them.
Definitely. We hear your heart. We hear the passion. We hear, the interest, and we know what it is that needs to be done now. I'm sure most persons are hearing about post-polio syndrome for the first time. You have some young people, I'm sure, they don't even know that there was something called polio. And so this is an opportunity for, sharing with them, about polio and post-polio syndrome. It was such a pleasure talking with you, Mrs. Sarah Newland Martin and Nella McPherson. And so for persons who are listening, if you are experiencing post-polio syndrome, talk to your doctor. There may be prescribed special exercise programs that you may be able to participate in, assistive devices that can assist you, physical therapy, occupational therapy, or there may be medicines that could help you to manage the symptoms. Until next time, I'm Dr. Christine Hendricks. Walk good.